Brad, how close to a deal for Yanis Antetokounmpo did you guys come over the last few days here?
Yeah, just like any other time, I'm not going to talk about, those types of things, right? We'll do it if we ever have a deal and we're ultimately allowed to talk about it. But I'm not going to go into any specifics on that.
What has the communication been like with Jaylen Brown over the past few days or the past week in this offseason?
Yeah.
How are you guys?
We've met. We had a couple meetings earlier, end of May, also before he went back overseas a couple days ago or 10 days ago or so. Spent a lot of time, just the two of us sitting down together, and then have been like every offseason in regular touch with his agent all the way through the last couple of days. And, obviously with all the rumor mill and all that stuff and name being splashed all over the place, that's not easy, but we certainly wanted to be as proactive and upfront with that as possible. And I thought we had really good, candid conversations.
Brad, is Jaylen Brown going to be on this team at the beginning of next season?
Jaylen Brown's a big part of us. I'm never going to predict the future, but every indication, everything that I think about is over the past few years has been building around those guys, right? And so obviously you never know. But at the same time, I think the one thing I want to make very clear is how valued he's always been. He's been amazing. He's been an amazing teammate, great person to be around. Whether that run ends 10 years from now, when he retires or before, there's a lot to celebrate. And, that we have a great relationship and an open relationship, where we talk about everything. And, but I don't want to predict the future, but, I look at it as this is our team.
Do you believe that these trade rumors have impacted the relationship with Jaylen at all? And secondly, he's eligible for an extension. Is there a plan to give him that this offseason?
We would never talk about contract stuff publicly, obviously, until those are signed and or when it's appropriate. And I would say you would have to ask him. I mean, it's not fun, and I'm empathetic towards that. It's not fun to be through that. And at the same time, I think my job is to be as candid and upfront as possible prior to, and have tried to do that.
Brad, what caught your eye with Chris in the scouting process, and why do you think he'll be a good fit here?
Well, he's just a good young player, energetic, plays hard, excellent athlete. Long, fits a position of need. Some things that we were a little short on this year from an athletic perspective, I think, with his size and his length. And he is, when you play in the program he's played for, he's been through, he's been taught well and been held to a high standard. And so I like that. And he will undoubtedly come here and be eager to jump into it. He's a good worker. He's a good person. And he's got a lot to learn, but we're excited about starting that process with him.
Back on Jaylen, he said on his stream last month that if it was up to him, he'd be in Boston for the next 10 years. From your conversations with him this offseason, do you get the sense that that's changed? Does he still want to be here?
I'll always keep our conversations private. It's just, I think it's appropriate, regardless of what the content of those conversations are like. But, I think what I said is really true. I don't love the fact anytime it's a big public thing. As we try to keep things as close to the vest and quiet as possible. And at the same time, knowing that the rumor mill's the rumor mill and there's going to be a lot of noise out there. That's why you try to also meet and be upfront as possible. But yeah, listen, I can't say enough good things about Jalen, but it isn't the. But I certainly am empathetic towards probably what that's felt like.
Brett, in that conversation with Jalen, did you have to be more of a listener? Did he have a lot to say about perhaps some of his issues, or was it more mutual?
Yeah, again, and I don't mean to sidestep your question. I just won't get into I'd like always keep these conversations private, and this is not unusual to. We had 10 guys in the gym this morning. Almost all our team was here at one point in time in the last 2 weeks. And so I'm either meeting with guys in the weight room, on the court, as you see when you walk in, or in my office or in the meal room almost every day. So it's not an unusual deal. But we just, I think that ultimately, I just want to be as candid and open as possible and available as possible. But from a content perspective, I'll keep that between us.
And it seems like you said you're empathetic with what he
I think
might be
just
going
like,
through.
yeah, just the noise surrounding all this is yeah, it's, I get it. And again, I think what I hope to do is just be upfront. And then, as reachable as possible throughout all that, and as available as possible throughout all that.
Adam? Obviously not getting into details about the conversations, but having spoken to him and had the dialogue over this time, how do you feel just kind of about the status of this partnership that you guys have had for this period and presumably will continue to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that anytime there's always going to have to be conversations, there's always going to have to be get-togethers, there's always going to have to be things that you talk about. I'm very certain that, again, it's not easy to be in the national rumor mill, right? And so I again, I'm extremely understanding of that. And so, yeah, I think there always has to be discussions. And but again, I just keep going back to this. That's why I just try to be as upfront as possible and as candid as possible at the beginning. Long before any talks begin, so that our guys understand that being here and being in the limelight, they're going to have a lot of attention on them regardless. And then, they also understand that there are things that are exaggerated at this time of the year, and there are things that are real, and so they've been through all that stuff, and they kind of have felt all that stuff, but doesn't mean it's easy.
Brad, we've gone over this a lot with the second apron, first apron. How do you see these challenges evolving? A lot of people talk about, can you have two max contracts anymore? As you see the evolution of what you're trying to do, how do you see that challenge kind of developing moving forward, and how teams can be built like that?
Well, I think, we've been really lucky because our two guys, both guys, are very good. And I think that that's the number one key if you're going to have those big contracts, is that they're both excellent players that on any given night, can put 40 on the board and carry you. And then with that, you just have to be good around the edges of the roster. That's easier said than done, but I do think that it's very doable. But the key goes back to, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it on those guys. And those guys have been great. They've both been, amazing and deserve every part of it. And I think will continue to be amazing.
Brad, last time we talked to you talked about having time to kind of do deeper dives in terms of where you guys are at with the exit. Now that we're heading into the free agency now, what is the biggest priorities for you going forward here? And have you changed your thought process on what you guys need in the last few weeks?
I think the same stuff I think we need the same. I think we're going to continue to look at size. And then I do think that we will look to add, and we'll see how tomorrow goes. We have a pick in, I think, number 40, right? And so, whether that is somebody that we ultimately roster or two-way or whatever, we'll figure all that stuff out. But I do think that, size, and then I would like to add maybe one more person with some speed on the perimeter.
Just wondering how Jason's health is doing, especially as we get deeper into the offseason, and just how his spirits are.
Yeah, he's been good. He's been good. He actually started. A lot of these guys, a lot of the younger guys have been here because they're ramping up to play in summer league or to just, we haven't been done as early as we were done in a long time. So they actually went away for a while and then came back for a couple weeks, and so they've spent a lot of time together. And Jason joined them last week to start to ramp up. He's got some travels coming up. He might be out of town already, but he's got his camp coming up, and I think he was excited about getting on the court with some of those young pups a little bit.
Hey, Brad, right over here. You mentioned countless times that the expectation of the Boston Celtics are to win championships. So do you believe that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown together on the Boston Celtics are still able to bring that to Boston?
You touched on it earlier, but how much did the benefits of playing for Coach Sampson, what you saw there, his growth, influence the decision to take a chance on a prospect who's raw but has high upside?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a lot to learn. He's got a long way to go. He's got a lot of room to grow. But when you're that age and you were that ballyhooed coming out of high school, and then you go and you play for Coach Sampson, and he does not let you off the hook for one mistake over the course of a full year, right? And in everything that we've learned about Chris and everything that Coach has told me is that he was pretty hard on him, and he was on him, and all he did was come to work. And I think that's a really impressive quality for a young guy. When I watched him play live several times this year, I never walked out of he didn't always play well, but I never walked out of the gym thinking he didn't play hard. And he didn't really, really, really go after it. And so I think that's a good place to start.
Final couple questions. Zach and Gary.
Yeah, Brad, on Chris as well, a lot of the draft analysts kind of view him as a sort of a project type player. Do you view him as someone who could contribute this season, or is this more of a kind of longer term play?
I hope we're good enough that it's hard for any 18-year-old or 19-year-old to come in here and be really good out of the gate. I think that usually is more about their own personal development and growth and learning how hard it is and learning how to be a part of a team and learning, how we work and how we, go about it every day. And then if they can add value, that's great. But there won't be any expectation of that from my standpoint. There certainly probably is a lot of excitement and expectation from his. But we were sitting here last year, and I didn't think the guy that we drafted would play at all for us. But you never know. Let's see. We'll see how they all come in and work, and he'll certainly have the opportunity like everybody else. But you're behind when you're 19, and you're dealing with now men.
Brad, in a general sense, you've been dealing with young men for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
When
Longer
than that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, since you were a young man, when they maybe disagree or when they have some concerns that maybe you were unaware of, how do you generally deal with that? When a player seems to be unhappy and you weren't maybe not aware that he was unhappy, or when he has concerns that you may not have been aware of, how do you deal with those conversations with that particular player in terms of like to smooth things over?
Well, I don't know necessarily what you're asking or the context in which you're asking it. I'd say, but I try to be as observant as possible. I'm here a lot. I'm around a lot. I think I've got a decent pulse on our building, and then I just want to listen, and I just want to be a good teammate, and try to help. And that's my role in that moment, I guess. But I think that, again, we have a lot of people in here, whether they've been here for 1 year or in Jalen's case 10 or in Mike Zaren's case 20, right? Where there's a lot of time spent together and a lot of relationship there. And so hopefully you can have candid conversation.